Welcome to video 24 in our AI.Powered research series. Today we're addressing a critical issue that affects every researcher using AI, understanding how bias in AI systems can affect your research outputs. This isn't about political bias or controversial topics. It's about systematic patterns in how AI models process and generate information that can skew your research in subtle but significant ways. Here's the core problem. AI models are trained on existing data, primarily text from the internet and digitized publications. This training data has profound gaps and biases. Most of it is in English. Most comes from Western academic traditions. Most reflects the perspectives and priorities of wealthy, educated populations. When you ask AI for help with research, these biases shape the responses you receive. The AI doesn't tell you about research traditions it was barely trained on. It overrepresents findings from populations and contexts that dominate its training data. It may perpetuate outdated frameworks or miss emerging paradigms from underrepresented regions. Understanding these biases doesn't mean you can't use AI. It means you need to compensate for them. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how AI bias manifests in research contexts and what you can do about it. Let's understand where AI bias comes from and why it's particularly relevant for researchers. AI language models learn patterns from their training data. They learn which ideas are often discussed together, what conclusions typically follow from premises, and what sources are frequently cited. If certain perspectives dominate the training data, the AI learns to treat those perspectives as default or normative. The training data for most large language models skews heavily toward English language content. Research published in Chinese, Spanish, Portuguese, Arabic, and other major world languages is underrepresented. This means the AI has limited knowledge of scholarship published outside English language journals. Beyond language, there's geographic and institutional bias. The AI knows more about research from Harvard than from universities in Southeast Asia. It knows more about studies conducted in North America and Europe than those from Africa or South America. This isn't because that research doesn't exist. It's because the training data didn't include it proportionally. There's also temporal bias. The AI's knowledge has a cutoff date, and its understanding of recent developments is limited. Rapidly evolving fields are particularly affected because the AI may present outdated frameworks as current. For researchers, these biases mean that AI assistance may inadvertently narrow your perspective rather than broaden it. Let's talk about a specific concept that illustrates AI bias, the WEIRD problem, spelled W-E-I-R-D. WEIRD stands for Western, Educated, Industrialized, Rich, and Democratic. It's a term coined by researchers who noticed that most psychology studies were conducted on WEIRD populations, typically American and European college students, yet the findings were generalized as universal human behavior. AI models have a severe case of the WEIRD problem. Their training data overrepresents WEIRD perspectives, WEIRD research, and WEIRD assumptions about how the world works. When you ask AI about research methods, you'll likely get approaches common in Western academic traditions. When you ask about theoretical frameworks, you'll get frameworks dominant in English language scholarship. When you ask for literature suggestions, you'll get papers from journals that the AI's training data covered thoroughly, which skews toward high-profile Western publications. This doesn't mean the AI's suggestions are wrong. They may be excellent for Western contexts, but if your research involves non-WEIRD populations, different cultural contexts, or alternative academic traditions, the AI's recommendations may miss crucial literature and perspectives. The mitigation strategy is awareness and active compensation. Know that AI suggestions reflect a biased sample of human knowledge and deliberately seek out perspectives the AI might have missed. Here are the specific ways AI bias manifests in research contexts and how to identify it. Literature suggestions will skew toward high-impact English language journals. If the AI is recommending papers, notice which journals and authors dominate. Are perspectives from your field's international community represented? Actively search for scholarship from underrepresented regions. Methodological recommendations will reflect Western research traditions. Qualitative methods, quantitative approaches, and mixed methods designs all vary across academic cultures. If the AI suggests one approach as standard, ask yourself, standard where. Consider whether alternative methodological traditions might be relevant. Theoretical frameworks will reflect dominant paradigms. Every field has competing theoretical perspectives, and some have more representation in AI training data than others. If the AI presents one framework as obviously correct, seek out critiques and alternatives. Language and terminology will reflect English language conventions. Concepts don't always translate perfectly across languages. Be aware that the AI may be using terms with specific meanings in English language scholarship that differ from how those concepts are understood elsewhere. Citation patterns will perpetuate existing inequities. If you rely entirely on AI for literature suggestions, you'll end up with citation lists that reflect the AI's bias training data. Make deliberate efforts to cite diverse scholarship. Here are practical mitigation strategies you can implement immediately. Strategy 1. Ask the AI about its limitations explicitly. Prompt with something like, "What perspectives or research traditions might be underrepresented in your response?" The AI can often identify its own blind spots when directly asked. Strategy 2. Request diverse perspectives deliberately. Instead of asking, "What does research say about X?" ask, "What do Western research traditions say about X? What about non-Western perspectives? Are there critiques of the dominant view?" Strategy 3. Cross-reference with specialized databases. If you're researching topics relevant to specific regions or populations, use databases that specialize in that scholarship. AI suggestions should supplement, not replace, targeted literature searches. Strategy 4. Consult researchers from diverse backgrounds. AI is a tool, not a substitute for human expertise. Colleagues from different academic traditions can identify gaps that both you and the AI might miss. Strategy 5. Review your I.assisted outputs for bias. Before finalizing any I.assisted work, audit it for representativeness. Whose voices are centered, whose are missing. Make conscious choices about what to include. These strategies don't eliminate AI bias. Nothing can. But they ensure you're producing more balanced, globally informed research. Here's the impact of understanding and addressing AI bias in your research. When you account for AI bias, you produce more rigorous, more inclusive, and ultimately more valuable research. Your literature reviews will be more comprehensive. Instead of citing only what AI suggests, you'll deliberately include scholarship from diverse sources. This makes your work more thorough and positions it within the full context of global knowledge. Your methodological choices will be more considered. Understanding that AI recommendations reflect particular traditions helps you choose methods that fit your research context rather than defaulting to what seems standard. Your interpretations will be more nuanced. Awareness of bias helps you avoid overclaiming generalizability. You'll be more careful about specifying whose perspectives your findings represent and under what conditions they apply. Your research will contribute to equity in scholarship. When you actively seek out and cite underrepresented perspectives, you help correct the systemic biases in academic publishing and knowledge production. And you'll be a better mentor. Teaching your students and trainees about AI bias prepares them to use these tools responsibly throughout their careers. Let's summarize the key takeaways from this video. First, AI bias is structural, not accidental. Models are trained on data that overrepresents English language, Western, weird perspectives. This shapes every output they produce, including research assistants. Second, bias manifests in specific ways. Literature suggestions skew toward high-impact Western journals. Methodological recommendations reflect particular traditions. Theoretical frameworks favor dominant paradigms. Language and citations perpetuate existing inequities. Third, mitigation requires active effort. Ask AI about its limitations. Request diverse perspectives explicitly. Cross-reference with specialized sources. Consult colleagues from different backgrounds. Audit your outputs for representativeness. Fourth, addressing bias makes your research better. More comprehensive literature, more appropriate methods, more nuanced interpretations, greater contribution to equity in scholarship. Make bias awareness a standard part of your AI.assisted research workflow. This video is part of a series based on the book Impact or Invisible: Surviving the Data Age with AI by Angel Reyes, available on Amazon. Here's your takeaway to remember. AI models are mirrors that reflect the biased data they were trained on. They don't see the full picture of human knowledge. They see what was digitized, translated, and made available in formats they could process. Your job as a researcher is to know where the mirror distorts and to look through other windows. Every time you use AI for research assistance, ask yourself whose perspectives might be missing here. Then actively seek out those perspectives through other means. In the next video, we'll explore the EU Act and what researchers need to know about emerging AI regulations. If you found this valuable, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss it.